Hey everyone, welcome to the Human Skills Lab podcast. Because human skills aren't soft, they're essential. I'm Heidi Peace, an educator, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
And I'm Kobe Campbell, a school counselor and licensed clinical social worker. We're teaming up to encourage and equip you to build the skills for a better life. Whether you're feeling overwhelmed or just looking for a little motivation, you're in the right place. Although we come from an education background, this podcast is intended for everyone.
In every episode, we're going to share practical tips, personal stories, and strategies you can actually use. Plus, we'll answer your questions and maybe even have some fun along the way.
So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's figure this out together. You're in the right place.
This podcast is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice. Also, our views are our own and do not reflect the school district in which we work. We are so glad you're here. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're all figuring it out together, one step at a time. Well, today's topic is a big one. And before we start, let's do our tiniest next step, our check-in, for our accountability check-in that we did from last week. So last week, we were trying to come up with 3 things that we could control. What were your 3 things?
My accountability was more geared towards, because it was the 8 dimensions of wellness, right, that we talked about. And my accountability was one of those dimensions of wellness, the physical activity, right? So I was going to ask a friend to surf and or keep track of intentional movement. And the intentional movement did not happen. I'm going to be transparent. I do get more than 10,000 steps a day, but I think I've done yoga once. And so I'm struggling with that. That's the thing that goes first when the school year ramps up. I did ask a friend to surf. We did not end up being able to coordinate or get out in the water, weather, poor surf, schedules, the whole thing. So I'm going to say this one was kind of a bust for me, and I do think that's something I'm going to pay more attention to, is that intentional exercise. I know we were talking the other day about bone density and all the, we have these conversations during the week that bring up this, oh, yeah, I should probably pay attention to some things that go by the wayside, and I think intentional exercise is one of those for me. So that's going to be an ongoing accountability piece for me, I think. Yours was 3 things that you can control, and what did you come up with?
Well, one of mine was exercise.
Yeah.
Because I can control that, and I kind of have a low bar for myself.
Maybe I need to set a super low bar.
Yeah, I just have like a low bar because I just take into account the fact that I need time to get in shape. So I'm not going to do it as frequently as maybe I should yet, but I will keep going. My other 2 things were not controlling how much I work, but controlling having some borders around when I'm not working. Like, I am choosing to meet my friends after work. I am choosing to do art. I am choosing to do something else that is not work right now. So like, I can't always control my influx of work. In fact, sometimes it just feels so heavy. But what I can do is I can protect little bits of time for joy, fun, wellness.
Yeah.
And I would say that how I'm doing on that is okay, actually.
Good.
Saw some friends for like 4 hours yesterday. And I even brought my art book in to show my class, and that was a big hit because I'm brand new at it, and I was also modeling for them like a beginner's mindset.
Yeah.
Because this is brand new to me, and I'm doing something to grow myself, even though I don't need to. I'm just learning for the sake of learning.
Yeah.
And so I think it was positive all the way around.
Yeah. Cool. I love that. So today's topic is entitlement, and that's a big topic, and sometimes one that can be sort of nebulous. What is entitlement? Like, what is it actually? And especially when you're dealing with children, as parents, as teachers, as counselors, what's developmentally appropriate in terms of entitlement? We know that kids are naturally self-centered and that that's perfectly normal, but when does it tip over into maladaptive or something that we really want to nip in the bud before it becomes adults who are, behave in entitled ways, or who have an attitude of entitlement versus a sense of I am worthy of this thing, if that makes sense. So starting with what it looks like. I think every parent, every teacher, every counselor, every adult deals with entitlement behaviors at some point or another in children. Like I said, because of that normal developmental piece of that, sense of, I'm important. And it takes a while for the world to knock that out of us, right? So we have that natural self-centeredness as kids. And so when kids behave in entitled ways, whether it's developmentally normal or not, it can trigger things in us because we are all seeing things through our glasses, through our lenses of what we've been through, our childhoods, good, bad, or ugly, or indifferent, our experiences as kids, teens, adults, those are the glasses we're seeing things through, and our kids are seeing them through their glasses, whatever beliefs and thoughts and perceptions they've developed through their experiences, those are the lenses they're seeing it through. So I think when we're talking about entitlement, let me back up and give some examples of entitlement, because we need to know it before we know what to do with it. So when we're talking about entitlement, it might be the toddler tantrum in the grocery store because they couldn't have the Lucky Charms that they wanted, or the whatever bit or bob they chose to focus on. It could be the middle schooler who, I didn't, it's not my fault I didn't get my homework, and the teacher didn't post this in a certain place or at a certain time. It can be the lack of appreciation for meals or transportation or things that are bought or provided for our kids. Those are more developmentally normal, sort of the, oh, I don't like this dinner. This isn't good. Or, why can't you take me to this place? Right?
Right.
So those kinds of things are kind of developmentally normal. When we get into the blaming on other people, like, it's not my fault that I hit him. He did this first. Or it's not my fault that I got a bad grade. My teacher doesn't like me. Or why can't I have this thing that everybody else has? I have to have it. I need it now. That instant gratification. Or the demands that you provide things that makes their life look like the person that they're following on social media. And it's not within your means. It's not necessary, and it may not even be healthy for them to have. So we've got more developmentally normal sort of senses of entitlement, or stages where people, kids are sort of working through something and we can guide them in a productive way. And then we've got more like tipping over into maladaptive, demanding instant gratification, intense complaining, or, blaming, or relationship wrecking sorts of, entitlement that we need to pay closer attention to before it grows into something even bigger. So it could be the instant gratification demands, I want it now. It could be lack of accountability, blaming teachers, siblings, or others. It could be low frustration tolerance. I need this now, and if I don't get it, I'm going to make you pay. And it can also be a belief in unearned rewards. Like, I showed up, why am I not getting praised? Getting praised or rewarded for doing the bare minimum can be some examples. And although these behaviors can feel personal, they're not. They're either learned behaviors, right? We have fostered it, or society has fostered it in some way, or they've learned it from somewhere. But then it's our job to check in with ourselves and see, well, what can we do about this? Because this is not sustainable for me. Makes me feel awful, makes them feel awful. So what can we do about it?
And it can be harmful to the relationship as well. Because as parents and teachers and just adults in children's lives, we're there to support them and through their growth and development. And it can, if we think it's tipping into that maladaptive, how do we support that child through this?
Yeah.
And know that we do want them to feel valuable. We do want them to feel self-esteem, self-assured, confidence. All of those things are healthy. Where it becomes maladaptive, that's where we might need to help.
Yeah, and it not only affects our relationships with them, but it can affect their peer relationships too. I
Yeah.
mean, think about it as a kid who insists on doing things their way all the time, playing the game that they want to play versus somebody else's, or they get to always be the top dog in whatever, activity they're doing. That really that can affect their friendships. And they may seek out kids who just, will follow that more, but that's still not healthy for either of those kids to have somebody who is always following or somebody who is always leading. It doesn't help either of their developments. So when we are thinking about why entitlement happens, there are a variety of factors, some of which are more in our control than others. So if the child is being sort of overindulged, boundaries aren't set on how much, when, how, like the desires, the wants, even the things that they can do themselves, right? If there isn't sort of a push towards independence and responsibility, that can lead to entitlement. So overdoing, overindulgence, too few boundaries. And we may do that for a variety of reasons, which we'll get into. Well, maybe we need to get into it now. Why do we do that? Why do we
I
overindulge our kids, right?
And if we do overindulge them, we're kind of like taking away their opportunity for growth
Yes.
because they need practice. And we want to provide all of the practice as much as we can at all stages because all of the consequences only get bigger.
Oh, yeah.
If we don't give them practice with $5 now, are they going to be able to make their car payment or their house payment later on?
Or keep their credit card
Keep their credit card
off.
balance
Yeah.
down. Like, what is the smallest thing we can do right now to give them power over something tiny, to give them a chance to learn from it, to practice with it, to understand the responsibility of it, so that down the line, those bigger things are not as difficult?
I think you pay a smaller price. The stakes are lower now. So giving them the opportunity for independence, responsibility, and making mistakes now makes a lot of sense to me instead of waiting, like the doing for, and then all of this sudden they're supposed to know it. I think you can start pretty young. I think I've referenced before, maybe not, a parenting program I used to ascribe to back in the day that said if they can walk, they can work. Right? And it's not child labor, but it's they can contribute to the family. They can learn how to do these things. And will they mess them up? Absolutely. But the stakes are low.
And the positives are high. There's pro-social benefits too. Like if you're helping with raking the leaves or helping fold the laundry, you can feel good that you've contributed and that you make a difference in your family. And it's like, it's even more evidence that they belong.
Yes, and then the other thing is, if we think about what we want for our kids when they leave the nest and then, come back to visit, we want them to be community contributors. Most of us, right? We want them to want to help out, to want to create something good. And that can start in the family, contributing to the family. When they get to teenagehood, that can be a hard sell, but still, if you have, that connection before correction, that relationship-based parenting, not friendship parenting, which is a whole other thing in terms of entitlement, but that relationship connection-based parenting, you bring them in, and that's the basis of this, sort of helping out, is that the belonging in the group, the family group. So, some reasons why we end up overindulging, we may do that out of anxiety, we may do that out of guilt, we may not have had sort of the things that we want for our kids in our own childhood. So we want to provide all the things, and sometimes that goes overboard and we don't realize the impact that it's having.
And we have to
Like,
understand, is it coming from our child needing that, or is it what we
yeah, yeah.
what we inside needed as a kid, and where is that coming from? So that self-examination, that introspection can really give you a clue as to why we're doing what we do.
I think we always come back to that inner work, that like really considering where is this coming from? And that can be really hard. And it can be, how do I do that? Well, it takes some quiet, it takes some stillness, it takes some looking inward and thinking about things that might be painful. And let me take a moment to just give a side note. If you start to do this inner work and you find this is too painful, I want to avoid it, this is really hard for me, or it's bringing up trauma, seek a professional to help you with that. A therapist can be really helpful in guiding you in terms of pace and how deep, and dealing with the aftermath. And so I really encourage anybody who starts to do this work and just finds that either they're really wanting to avoid it, but you really want to do it, or you start to and it becomes too painful, seek professional help. There is no shame in seeking professional help to help you work through this, because the upside of this is that it becomes, you have fewer triggers and it becomes easier to parent, because kids can trigger all day long. I mean, the kids know the buttons to push. They're smart, right? And developmentally, it's kind of normal to want to get what you want. So if there's a button, I'm going to push it,
And
right?
we're
And
also passing on less patterns that are not healthy.
yeah, when we're dealing with our own patterns that are unhealthy, we're avoiding passing those on to our kids, which is super important.
Right.
So, I mean, and then the other one other reason, not the other reason, but one other reason that we parent that way sometimes is out of anxiety, of fear that either we're not going to be able to handle or they're not going to be able to handle when something bad happens. And you know what? That is avoiding building resilience.
Right.
It's hard. It's really hard because we want to bubble wrap our kids. We don't want to see them in pain. Sometimes it's worse for us than it is for them, because of our triggers, our childhood, our experiences, or just because.
And I think
This,
ultimately we want to send them a message that they are capable. And if
yeah.
we give them opportunities to be capable,
Hmm.
that's how they prove it to themselves. You can tell them all day long how great they are,
Yeah.
but that is not self-esteem.
No. Nope.
That's not how it's built. There's no way to inject it. You really have to do the hard work to feel that you can do it. It's
Yeah.
nothing
Self-esteem comes from
that can come
confidence.
from the outside.
No, self-esteem comes from confidence, and confidence comes from building mastery. So if you don't allow them to build mastery, to make mistakes, fall down, see that they can survive a mistake and learn from it, then that's another way that we hamstring our kids from really becoming those strong, capable, resilient community contributors that we want our kids to be as adults. So, yeah, check in with yourself, especially with anxiety, because there is acceptable risk, there is age appropriate risk. And while it might be hard for us to see them take a risk, and we worry about what will happen and can I handle it, can they handle it, the age appropriate and acceptable risks that we allow them to take help them build resilience, and honestly helps us to build resilience too.
And
Like we can see,
the more exposure, the
mhm,
better.
yeah.
The more chances they have to fail, pull themselves back up, and also succeed.
Hmm. And we provide that scaffolding, just like we've talked about before. We look at the small risk that they can take that isn't going to be, life altering or, um, huge, that if they fail, it's going to be a scrape on the knee, or, a small failure that they can recover from, and we can support them in recovering from and express our belief in them. Yep, that didn't work out. Let's try again. Do we need to do something different? Um, so we can support them in building that resilience and independence, which is an antidote to entitlement, right?
Yeah.
So other reasons why entitlement happens, that kind of goes along with that independence and resilience and all of that, is a lack of chores and responsibility. When kids don't have to be responsible for contributing and parents are doing all the things, which at some points it makes absolute sense for parents to do all the things, but then a gradual letting go of, you can do these things for yourself, builds that sort of independence and that feeling and idea and fact that I am responsible for myself, the decisions I make, the choices I make, the things that my actions, my words, I'm responsible for all of those. And building in that personal responsibility within the home, even if it's not needed, even if you have all of the external help, even if you have a cleaning lady or whoever else that you have working in your home, they can still do things.
And
And
you
it's
can make it very developmentally appropriate for their age. So, like cleaning a window with water and vinegar, totally safe.
folding laundry, even if it's not the way you would fold it. Like, it will go in the cabinet messy, it will go in the drawer messy, it'll barely be hanging off the hanger, but they have done it and they can feel proud. One side note, if it's hanging off the hanger or not the way you would have folded it, leave it.
Yeah.
Do not refold it, do not rehang it. Yes, there is a showing them how, but at some point, if they know how and they are practicing and they're doing it wrong initially, I'm going to say, maybe unpopular opinion, leave it. Say, oh, wow, you did that all by yourself. You don't have to comment on whether or not it looks great. You did that all by yourself. I'm really proud of you, you know? And eventually, if there's a pattern of like whatever, but there's a thing. It has to be done. It doesn't necessarily have to be done the way you want it done. That's a you thing. It's not a them thing, right?
Yep. And if you
I will
can,
not get into my linen closet and how it is or is not folded right now.
and if you
Because,
kind of keep in mind like three stages, like I do, we do, you do. So like first, I'm going to lead that chore. Then we are going to do the chore together, and then finally, when they're ready, or even if they're not quite ready, you get to do it.
whether or not you're ready for them to do
Right.
it. All right, so some of the other reasons why entitlement happens: overpraising ordinary effort. Like, they get a praise for everything that they do. And I like to substitute thank you for praising. Like, they folded their laundry and put it, hey, thanks for folding it. That was really helpful. I'm so glad that you did that. So there's a contribution focus versus oh, that was so amazing focus, which not everything's amazing. Some
And
things are
also,
done and you appreciate it. Thank you very much.
also like
Right.
asking them how they feel. Oh,
Mm.
how do you feel after you did that? I know you felt overwhelmed with that giant pile of laundry before. How do you feel now? And just asking them to be a little bit introspective.
Yeah.
And maybe that effort felt good, and maybe they're not going to tell you anything, but you've brought it up and you've walked away.
Right. Or maybe they will say, I hated it. It
Right.
feels good that it's done, but I don't want to do that again. But that's building independence, and you may get some pushback at first, because why wouldn't you want somebody to do everything for you? That's
Right.
easier,
Right.
right? But that's our jobs as parents, is to build adults, right? Build functional, great humans. So other reasons that entitlement happens, social media and instant gratification culture, I think. I mean, even as adults, we kind of, we slide into that too. But our kids these days, this generation is growing up with their brains wired by technology. I don't want to mention when computers and, all of the things became a big thing in my life, because it's a lot later than our generation growing up. And so it was a slower sort of pace to life. And this generation, there's a lot of instant. And so we are fighting that wiring, we're fighting that societal expectation. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's okay to do that. It's okay to slow them down. It's okay to delay social media. It's okay to delay screen time. In fact, it might be beneficial. I am not the kind of person that says, don't ever show your, toddler videos. I think there are parenting hacks that you're desperate. You need, parenting is hard. You use your tools, just don't overuse them. And especially when it comes to social media and that fast paced sort of technology, versus like watching an educational video or an entertaining video or doing screen things as a family, that fast paced social media dopamine hit type of technology, I'm going to say, delaying it as long as possible is probably a good idea. Did I do that? I'm not going to confirm nor deny. But I do see effects, in the children that I work with and in my own of social media. That's, it's an undeniable,
I
I think.
think one of the things we can think about too is when we do give those devices, we don't give them. We call them our device or the family device.
Family phone, yeah.
It is not it is not your phone, it is the family phone. It is not your phone, it's my phone.
Yeah.
And if you kind of keep that labeling, I think less likely the entitlement will develop.
Yeah, I think I do agree with that. Like this is something for you to use. And I think we've had conversations about I don't know what to do. My teen isn't taking care of, their responsibilities and they just take off in the car, and with their father they text their friends and they take who's paying for the car? Who's paying for the gas? Who's paying for the insurance? Who's paying for the phone bill? Who paid for the phone? Right? And I'm not saying yank all these things away, but it's worth a conversation saying these are not yours yet, right? These
Yeah.
are privileges, and yes, you need to get to work. There is public transportation. I can take you, grab a ride from a friend, coworker. Um, these are privileges that rely on responsibilities, and I think building that responsibility privilege structure can help avoid entitlement. I need to take care of things. I'm not just provided things. And yes, there is a need for a phone. Well, flip phones are making a comeback. There's a way to have your kid able to contact you if needed, but is not the bells and whistles. And that sounds harsh, maybe, but I'm just saying some of the cognition around, but my child needs this.
Right.
Do they?
And you have to
And
make sure it's not for you, that you don't want to just track them at every moment.
right.
Because there can be some of the other way too, where you want to feel safe as a parent. And we
Mhm.
also have to let go a little bit of a little bit of that being able to have our feelings of anxiety satiated by the
Yeah.
phone.
And also like building that culture of trust, right? Um, the idea that I need to be able to trust you. And also the verify. We've talked about, phones and how like it's your phone and it's okay to say, hey, I trust you and I want to make sure you're not getting into situations you don't know what to do with or you're in over your head. There's a lot of things that go on the internet that developmentally might be really difficult for you to handle or know what to do with. So let's sit together and, hash this out. And as your teen gets older, just that letting go of responsibility, or letting go of that, what am I trying to say? Letting go and allowing them to be independent, but also when you or if you find out that there's a glitch there, oh, we got to pull something back. It's okay to
Yeah.
pull that back.
And there's a boundary and there's an
Hmm.
expectation, and you've thought about it, and
Hmm.
you've talked to any other adults who are also involved in this child's upbringing. Like you've talked about that, you know that. And maybe you have enacted some boundaries with yourself too, so you can understand how hard it really is
Yeah.
to roll back from our world where you're constantly connected to
Yeah.
being a bit less connected.
And I think that can really go a long way with, especially with teenagers saying, "Hey, I'll do this too. I recognize I'm too connected as well. So let's do a family parking lot for our phones at certain times of the day, or a parking lot for phones at night. So, because teens scrolling up in the middle of the night because they can, right? Not
Right.
getting enough sleep, which is a domino effect. Um, that can be hard though, because, oh, I use it for my alarm. Well, get an alarm clock. I mean, yes, it can be duplicative. Is that even a word? I don't know. We're making stuff up today. But we can, yes, we can use our phones for alarms, but if it's causing a problem, park it and get an
Hmm.
alarm clock,
Hmm.
right? There are always solutions to these things that we think we need, we think we have to do, that we know we don't. We can always find a workaround that allows us to be healthier, even if it doesn't like, oh, but I don't want to have to go out and buy a new. No, you don't want to have to go. I don't either. But if it's going to help solve a problem, do it. Try it, see what happens. So, we have talked a little bit about what it looks like normal, developmental, and maladaptive. We've talked about some of why it happens.
Some
Um,
societal factors.
Societal factors. I want to talk a little bit more about those. Some of the factors we've talked about how kids need to struggle, fail, contribute, all those things, and some of the algorithms, the social media and other technology algorithms that sort of train their brains. Um, and we've talked. I alluded to friendship parenting versus sort of leadership parenting or connected parenting. There's a difference between connected parenting and being their friend. There are going to be some times you can be close, you can be connected, but the bottom line is you are still in charge.
Hmm.
And explaining, I have found that explaining the why. This is what I'm doing, and this is why. Not just yanking privileges, not just. And that takes a lot of checking in because when kids do not do the things and or make big mistakes, it causes feelings. I'm having some feelings, right? And so checking in with ourselves to make sure we're not acting out of anger, and having that conversation, man, this is hard for me to do, but
Yeah.
this expectation wasn't met. Trust was broken. I'm not feeling good about this. I want us to feel good again. So how are we going to do that?
And
Bring it in.
at the beginning, I said we need to give them $5 and let them mess up with that. We also
Mhm.
need to give them an opportunity to feel feelings
Yeah.
because the feeling of getting your phone taken away for an hour is a different feeling than maybe a breakup later on or
Mm.
a loss of a job or a loss of a family member. Like the smaller emotional experience that we can allow them to have, there's going to be some resilience and confidence that comes later because they
Yeah.
know that they've overcome something small.
Yeah.
So, as those gradually increase, those are all learning opportunities that if we don't provide at all, it will feel harder when those bigger things come along later.
Yeah, we need to allow them to feel disappointment, hurt, pain. I mean, we need to keep an eye and support and
Right.
if it tips over into having difficulty with functioning, give them, some professional support. Um, but we need to let them feel. We need to let them experience those things so that they know that they can handle it. And when they're small, those feelings feel really big, but the situations are smaller. As they get older, those situations are going to get bigger. And knowing that they can handle, they have strategies and support in handling those small things or those feelings that feel big for small situations, that's going to give them confidence that they can handle other things. You're absolutely right.
So it's just they're all opportunities for growth, whether they are a consequence and they feel it emotionally or they don't.
Yeah.
They're all opportunities, and we need so many opportunities. Learning takes years and years and years.
Yeah.
I'm still doing it.
I hopefully we all are. I don't, even my 87-year-old, my reference before, mother is like, the hope is that we're constantly learning, that we don't become stagnant, content, yes, but stop learning, no. I think there's always going to be something to learn. about ourselves, about others, about how to navigate the world. We get better at it, hopefully, but. So, how do we parent through entitlement without guilt? Developmentally normal entitlement, maladaptive entitlement, how do we do it? We manage our feelings first. It's always, for me, going to come back to check in with yourself first, figure out what you're feeling, manage what you're feeling, and is this the correct time? Is this the right time? Am I feeling okay enough to do this with my kid? And even if you aren't, sometimes you got to dig deep, use a strategy, and model for them parenting through frustration. But it's normal to feel frustration, guilt, confusion when your kid is acting in entitled ways, and even to be angry about that. Like, I'm doing all this for you and you're not grateful, right? We may default to what we experience, which might mean that we say those things to them. We might try to guilt them because we're feeling unappreciated. Side note, that's never productive. They may end up feeling responsible for your feelings and create sort of a codependent situation, or just one that is not a great attachment. Not a healthy attachment. And so we don't want to guilt them into being responsible for our appreciation, but we can set some boundaries. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So just checking your regulation before you correct or address the behavior is, I would say, my number one tip. The next one is healthy boundaries without shame. Like, it's okay to set boundaries on what you do for your kid. It's okay to say, you know what, I had a really hard week at work and Friday just did me in. Like X, Y, and Z, and you don't have to tell them what X, Y, and Z happened, but in your own head, yeah, I need to rest. And this is optional. Like, a lot of time the sports practices, whatever, the teams they're on, the things you've committed to, not really optional. You got to do what you got to do. But no, I cannot drive you to the mall today. Like, I'm tired. I need to rest. Ask me again after I've, done X, Y, Z for myself. Maybe then, but not right now. And I think we can end up feeling guilty about setting boundaries on that.
Yeah.
And
that kind of brings it, actually, that just gave me like an aha moment from what my tiniest next step was. I said, yeah, I needed to protect some time for me. And I think if I'm successful with that, I'm not going to feel as low sometimes. It's going to act as like a little bit of a protection, a little bit of an insulation from feeling like overworked, because I've had a chance to do the things that matter to me. I feel like I'm going to be able to see requests more clearly than when I have no minutes to my name.
Yeah.
I am time poor.
Yeah.
I have been pulled in 8 million directions all day, and now you're asking me for what?
Yeah. No, I think sometimes as parents we equate boundaries with being harsh or mean, but really it's clarity, consistency, and connection. Like, you're modeling for them taking care of yourself, right? You're modeling for them not overdoing. Like, they've had a full week themselves, and yes, they're younger and have much more energy than we do, but it's okay to protect some time and not go do the thing for you, for them. That's okay to do, and we want to teach them healthy schedules as well, which is a rough one in this day and age. I think everybody's doing everything all the time, in the effort to create well-rounded kids, and sometimes it gets to be a bit much.
Yeah, the expectations have definitely shifted
Yeah,
on
and I think
time requirements.
free play is a part of being a well-rounded kid. Just saying. That's my little plug for free play.
Yep, and
Okay.
even teenagers need some time when they're not under the eyes of
Yeah.
adults. They do
Yep.
need some of that time.
And when you're setting those healthy boundaries, they're going to have some feelings. And we talked a little bit about before, the feelings are okay. We need to let them feel them. But behaviors have limits. Behaviors connected with those feelings have limits. So while teenagers slam doors, if it becomes a huge thing and a pattern, and it's, then a conversation. It's normal to have an outburst on occasion, but if it's every time, that kind of a thing. And having those conversations, those difficult conversations, does that sound familiar? About, you know, um, the pattern. Like, yeah, this doesn't feel good. I get that you're frustrated and I get that you're upset. I would be too if I were you. This
Yeah.
really sucks. And I'm sorry that we're here, you know. And it's my job to teach you responsibility. And this is the way that I know to do that. And we're in this together. Let's dig out of it together.
Oh, I
You
like that.
know, what amount of time seems reasonable to you for this consequence to be? And you're in charge. They can suggest a time, but you don't have to take it. It's good to take into account there. I mean, if it's a day when you think it should be 2 weeks, no. Like we need to compromise somewhere. But like bringing them in, that also builds accountability and sort of that sense of what's appropriate, right? The sense of how serious it is, bringing them into that consequence process. So feelings are okay, not all behaviors are. Again, if it's getting to be a huge pattern or unsafe or violent, professional help, right? We're talking about some everyday run of the mill, you know,
Normal kind of
developmentally appropriate
appropriate.
entitlement, and then
Yeah.
tipping into maladaptive if you're afraid for your safety or if your teenager is engaging in self-harm or there's large issues, please seek professional help. This is beyond. You can use some of the stuff that we're talking about, and definitely the regulating yourself is always useful,
Right.
but get help with dealing with those big behaviors because they are overwhelming. um, Remembering that the relationship comes first, but it's not a friendship. Like connecting with them,
Hmm.
letting them know your why, um, expressing care for themselves, their feelings, and their development. Like I see that this is so frustrating to you, and man, it's hard for me to do. It
Hmm.
would be easier. I have said on it would be easier for me to do the easy thing, but I don't think that's what's good for you. You know, like nobody wants to do this. Not me, not you, but I can't in good conscience as a parent
This is
not hold you
this is
accountable.
the hardest step, I think,
Yeah.
is to not jump right into the boundary, but really to connect.
Hmm.
And if the roles were reversed, how would you want it? So that's
Yeah.
what I try and prepare myself that way. Try and think, okay, if this was reversed, what would I want to hear?
Yeah, nobody wants somebody else to bring the hammer down. Like that's just I don't know when that ever gets a I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to go there, but as an adult and as a kid, I can't imagine anybody ever wants the hammer brought down. That doesn't
Hmm.
ever feel good. And I don't believe that that makes change.
Right.
Tough love for those really tough situations when you have to, like, there's no response and you're just up against a wall, maybe. But that's not our situation that we're talking about here, right? So I do believe that if you think about how would I want somebody to approach me on this, that could be a good starting point,
Yeah.
you
And,
know?
maybe infuse a little bit of humor. It can
I
make the
love when you
consequence just a little bit easier to take, if not a lot easier to take.
yeah, yeah,
And then you can have smiles on your faces, both of them, especially if you can get them to laugh. It can
yeah.
really defuse a situation. So, connection, putting yourself in the position that they're in, and
Pulling them
also
into developing the
trying
consequence.
to
So there,
diffuse
yeah,
it in some way, humor, or maybe like a an ongoing joke or something that's not offensive but rather funny.
yeah. Especially if it's a pattern of behavior and it's something they're really trying to break, but that they're not there yet, and you got to hold it accountable. You can't let it go, but you can develop some humor around that. Um, yeah, and I think really either developing sort of the agreed upon consequences first. Positive discipline parenting does a great job for this. I'll link the blog and the program in the description. but either agreed upon consequences ahead of time and then you stick to them, and they're involved in agreeing upon the consequences, so they've helped develop it. It's harder for them to say, you're doing this to me, but you help me with this, right? Or after the fact, if it's like, because there's always something you couldn't think to agree upon a consequence for, you know, kids are creative, and so in the ways that they get in trouble. So, like, okay, well, what do you think should happen here? Like, this trust was broken, this boundary was violated. What do you think should happen here? And again, you're in charge, so you can find that middle ground between, you know, it doesn't need to be 3 years, but it doesn't need to be 30 minutes. You know, coming into some sort of agreement about an appropriate consequence that fits the crime. I hate to use that word, but, you know, the punishment fits the crime. Whatever.
Yeah,
You
I know
know,
what you
the
mean, though.
consequence fits the mistake or
Yeah.
the, you know. So, yeah, bringing them in, I think, can be a really helpful thing.
And
There are,
do you have any unpopular opinions on this?
I
Like,
do.
what is maybe a prevailing wisdom that you don't agree with?
Yeah. So, I feel like a prevailing wisdom that I don't agree with is that kids have to appreciate you all the time. That is not right. Or even some of the, I mean, yes, it would be awesome if I would love that if kids appreciated their parents all the time. And they are naturally self-centered, so that's not going to happen. But I do feel like if you are feeling unappreciated, that's a moment for learning. That's a moment for teaching, letting go of some responsibility that you're feeling resentful for, right?
Yeah.
Not all responsibilities that we feel resentful for, changing diapers, they can't change their own diaper. However, those things that kids are able to do for themselves, I think that it's okay then to say, you don't even have to address it to them. I'm feeling resentful about you not being appreciative. You just say, hey, I think I'd like to teach you how to do this thing. I think you're ready. You are so capable. Let's start with this. And you can gently, slowly release that responsibility. Just even the plan to do that might make you feel better and less resentful. So I think that's one, is that kids need to appreciate us. Yes, they should. That would be great. And also, if you're feeling super resentful about something, you can let it go. Start training them to take it over, right? That's a conversation I had about dinner when I'm commuting a far way, and it's, you know, I'm tired when I get home, and so I had a conversation. Hey, who would like to do dinner a couple of times a week? You know, instead of getting, you know,
Angry and you need to help me. And
yeah, sinking in and
so,
getting mired in my resentment.
so it's okay to not be appreciated all the time. And it's also okay to ask for what you need and what you think is fair.
Yeah,
Both of those things are true.
yeah. So let's see. Other unpopular opinions that I have.
Oh, I have one.
Okay.
Um, that the sense of entitlement versus the maladaptive entitlement, you don't want to send a message of that you shouldn't ask for things and that you don't matter, tempering that with you do matter, and this is the way that I think I'm helping you develop.
Yeah.
Like sending a better message than you're too much.
Yeah, because if you like, yeah, you can and should ask for things, and setting boundaries doesn't mean you're too much. And setting boundaries doesn't make you a bad parent. I think that's another unpopular opinion, is that if you set boundaries, like, oh, that's awful, right? No, setting boundaries
It's healthy.
is healthy, right? So you can set boundaries around your energy, your time, what you're willing to do, things that they can do for themselves, unless it's you know, an unexpected or like a necessary thing. Like sometimes kids do get like mired down. Let's say your kid's taking AP classes and they're like, they've budgeted their time wisely, but this is just a crunch time for them. Yeah, do their laundry. It's a one-time thing, right? But otherwise, they're building in those adult skills, right? So it doesn't mean you never help out It just means, or, that setting a boundary means that you don't ever do anything for them. It's that they can do these things themselves and feel good and proud about them.
Right. Yeah. It's that how thick of a contrast do you want? Is there some flexibility? Do we want to have, what kind of relationship do we want to have? Do we want to have one of mutual kindness where we are flexible with each other? Maybe we're trading, like, oh, well, you can't cook this week, but you can walk the dog.
Yeah.
So can we do some swapping to basically say, yeah, I see that you're struggling in this spot, but let me help you by trading you. Or let me help you by, I know you're so busy, you've been staying up so late studying, let me help you with this bit of laundry out of kindness. Yeah, I think that's a really nice distinction. And I think that also gives a little bit of like modeling, because if the roles were reversed, how would you want it?
Yeah. Yeah. And asking for help can be really hard, especially, seems as though we're trying to build these, kids who do all the things all the time. And I think as adults, maybe we do that, maybe we don't. But I think if we are trying to do all the things all the time, we're probably a lot more stressed out. So asking for help is absolutely a human skill that needs to be developed in our kids, and for some of us, in us too, When things do not go according to plan, as they often do, grounding questions, am I regulated? I'm always going to come back to that. Am I regulated? And if you have to handle something when you're not regulated, do the best that you can. But if you have a moment, even 10 seconds to say, hey, I need to take a quick break. I'm not feeling that good. And what is regulated? Regulated isn't perfectly calm. Regulated is when, I think we talked in a previous episode about the hand model of the brain, your lid is not entirely flipped. Your prefrontal cortex is connected with your hippocampus and your amygdala. Like those centers of the brain that work together to make decisions, when those are all even minimally connected, that is the start of regulation, right? If you are going off, you're unregulated. If you are feeling like you can't speak kindly, take a beat, take a moment, take a breath. And I don't mean not be firm. I think you can be kind and firm at the same time. And yeah, your voice might be stern, but if you cannot say kind words, if you cannot keep your words something that you would not regret saying later,
Right.
don't do it.
We want to keep the child from feeling shame about it.
Yes,
So we're
because
not gonna.
shame will drive them underground away from you and can cause lifelong issues. Shame is to be avoided at all costs. Guilt is the result of doing something bad. Then I think guilt can be healthy. If you did something you shouldn't have done, you should feel guilty for it. But shame equates to I am bad.
Right.
And if we are shaming our kids and they believe that they are bad, it's much harder to make good choices when you're feeling that way.
Yeah. And
Another
we really don't want to send that message to them.
No.
We want to send that they are really good and that maybe they made a choice that they need to work on.
That they can recover from.
Yeah.
Right. Another grounding question, and I think we'll wrap up pretty soon, but is resentment driving this reaction? And if it is, consider what you want to do with it, right? If resentment is driving this reaction, taking a beat, thinking about what do I want my kid to know and be able to do? How is this going to affect my relationship if I act out of this resentment? What do I want my kid to know and be able to do? Is my reaction out of resentment going to teach them that? Or is it going to teach them something I don't want? So I would say those are two really, pretty good grounding questions when you're feeling the feels about your kid behaving in an entitled way, So some of the tiniest next steps that you can take, if you choose, pass the baton in small ways. Set up small structures for them to begin to do those things that you're resentful about having to do, them asking for you to do. Another one is repair after the conflict. Like if either of you has lost it or not behaved in ways that you feel good about, going back and repairing and modeling that repair for them. We make mistakes and it's okay to say, you know what, I did not do that in a way that I feel good about and I'm really sorry. Here's what I'm going to do next time. to try to do better. And kids often are so forgiving and about that, especially littles, you know. So, what else do we want to say about that today?
I
Approaching
think, yeah,
conversations
go ahead.
firmly but kindly. So, if you do have an entitlement situation, approaching the conversation, setting a boundary firmly but kindly, right? Not harshly, but being firm. And then modeling how to handle disappointment respectfully in other areas of our life. They're watching us all the time. You don't get what you want in a particular area on the phone with some customer service person or in a store, wherever it is, and we are disappointed things have not gone our way. They're watching. So, how to do that respectfully is a super important tiny next step. Maybe it's not so tiny if you're having big feelings,
Yeah.
but a step that you can take.
And then the last one is just making sure that you are authentically caring and connecting, and that you remember that they are human and that all of us make mistakes. If the roles were reversed, would this be the right way to handle it?
Mm.
And also knowing the person that you're talking to and providing these boundaries to, what the experience is like for them. Trying to be as empathetic as possible.
And if you think about it, and this might be a whole other episode, but if you think about it, a lot of these things that we're talking about can be used with adults too. It gets a little trickier because the balance of power shifts. I think that there's an inherent authority to parenting and adult relationships with kids that, naturally it lends itself to some of these strategies more than with adults. But I think you can take the things that we're talking about, setting boundaries. Setting boundaries on adult relationships is not mean. It's healthy. So a lot of the things that we've talked about can be healthy things to do in adult relationships as well.
Well, do you have any tiniest next steps for this topic of entitlement? And maybe we could enter this into an empowered way. Like, how do we empower our children so that they don't feel entitled? Like they're empowered
Mhm.
because they have done lots of little things, made lots of little gains on their own,
Yeah.
been chunked off tasks to the point where they can do large tasks now by themselves.
Yeah. So I think that is the empowerment piece that can be the antidote to an entitlement, is that you've helped them develop the confidence to do it for themselves. You've helped them see that it is not automatic that you just get things. Nobody gets things automatically in life, right? We all have to work for them. And if we set our kids up to believe that they will automatically get things, or that, oh, it's just having to work for them now builds those good habits and that empowerment that we want, you know. So, tiniest next step for me in terms of entitlement, I feel like asking questions, asking guiding questions, whoever the young person is in my life that is behaving in an entitled way, asking questions to get to the root, I think, of what's going on. And maybe that brings us to the feeling that they're having, and is there another way to manage this feeling versus getting the thing that they're demanding, if that makes sense. So getting curious, I think, is my next tiny step, is getting curious as to like what's going on there, and can we meet this need in a different way that does not involve demanding a thing, or demanding that what they want that might or might not be reasonable happens.
And I think my tiniest next step is to only focus on one or two things at a time. So if there's some entitlement or resentment that I am concerned about, whether the resentment's with me
Mm.
or the entitlement behavior is with a child, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time. So I'm going to keep it really simple and go, okay, well, if, chores are my thing, I'm going to choose like maybe one or two chores that we're really going to work on the I do, we do, you do model.
Mm.
And we're going to keep scaling that towards independence. And it doesn't need to take forever, especially if you can focus on it.
Yeah.
If you're trying to do too much at once, it might take a lot longer.
Yeah, it's easier to learn and integrate one thing at a time. So,
Yeah.
like if you're teaching them how to fold the laundry, just focus on that for a couple of weeks until
And
they have
start
that.
with maybe the towels or the
The
hand
easy
towels,
ones.
something easy. So start with the hand towels, then move up to something a little harder, and then they can do it by themselves soon enough.
Yeah.
So I'm going to focus. That's what I'm going to do. One thing at a time.
Sounds good.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. We really were glad to have this conversation with you. We hope that you can take away a little solace that you're not alone and that we're all dealing with these internal struggles and seeing some external behaviors, and
Yeah.
that you can find empowerment in what can be an entitled society.
Yeah. And just we encourage you to choose the next smallest step forward and just keep going. And grace is big around here. Like, give yourself grace. You don't need to do things perfectly to make progress. And sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Just keep moving forward. Small changes add up.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.
If you like what you hear, click the subscribe button or feel free to leave a comment or question. We'd love to hear from you about next topics that you want to hear about, or just anything that you have to say. We'll see you next time.
Bye.